So we're going to get started. It's now 14 past 6. I apologize that the planning board, the variance board meeting is starting just a little bit late. And my name is Frank Rich, and as the chair of the Alton Zoning Board of Adjustment, due to the COVID-19, and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to the Executive Order 2020-04, this board is authorized to meet electronically, and these reasons shall be reflected in the minutes. The town of Alton has moved from in-person meetings to remote audio participation meetings until further notice, and therefore there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. We strongly encourage everyone to attend our meetings remotely. Should you have a need to attend in person, we will make a remote location available upon a reservation request by you to this office, no later than 2 business days in advance of the meeting date. However, in accordance with the emergency order, this is to confirm that we are A, providing public access to this meeting by telephone. Members of the public wishing to attend this meeting electronically may call the conference call number from home. Follow the instructions listed under News and Announcements on the town website, which is www.alton.nh.gov. B, providing additional public access by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen, and if necessary, participate in this meeting through the link that is listed under News and Announcements and on the town's website. C, providing public notice of the necessary information for assessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to abutters in the public of how to access the meeting via telephone conference and by using Zoom. D, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting that a member of the public wishes to speak or be recognized during the public input at the public hearing. If you are calling in by conference call, press the star sign and then 9 to raise your hand to request to speak to the board. If you're using a computer, use the raise hand button to request to speak to the board. Several members of the public may be conferenced in, and requests to speak will be handled sequentially, one at a time. The Zoom moderator will allow you to speak when the board opens public input. E, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are any problems with access. If anybody has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-507-1002. F, adjoining the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting remotely and there are difficulties with the town's equipment, the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled to Thursday, May 6th, 2021, starting at 6 p.m. at the Alton Town Hall. You may call the planning department at 603-875-2162. I repeat, 603-875-2162 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday for more information and for the dial-in code and meeting ID for each zoning board meeting. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking a roll call attendance with each member states their presence, and also please state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is also required under the right to know law.
Paul Mooney, Vice Chair.
Tim Morgan, member.
Frank Rich, Chair.
Paul LaRochelle, Selectman Representative and Clerk. Paul Manzioni, member.
Mike Hepworth, alternate.
Okay. All right, so, call to order the introduction of board members, appointment of alternates. I believe we have a full board present tonight. So I believe that there is no need for an alternate, although Mike, certainly you can participate, but you will not be voting, okay, for tonight. Am I doing that correctly?
That's correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
this is John Dever. I just want to
Yes.
know that I am present, but you're not going to be able to see me because my computer's not working correctly.
that is just a definition of shame, not being able to see you, okay? But it's so good to hear your voice, John. Thank you. Is there anybody else out there from the planning department that you would like to be recognized? Okay. Statement of the appeal process. The purpose of this hearing is to allow anyone concerned with an appeal to the Zoning Board of Adjustment to present evidence for or against the appeal. This evidence may be in a form of an opinion rather than an established fact. However, it should support the grounds which the board must consider when making a determination. The purpose of the hearing is not to gauge the sentiment of the public or to hear personal reasons why individuals are for or against an appeal, but all facts and opinions based on reasonable assumptions will be considered. In the case of an appeal for a variance, the board must determine facts bearing upon the 5 criteria set forth in the state statutes. For a special exception, the board must ascertain whether each of the standards set forth in the zoning ordinance have been or will be met. Okay, and now I need an approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, Paul Manzioni, provided there are no changes or amendments to be made to the agenda, which I would ask Mr. Dever, our code enforcement officer, any changes or amendments?
There are no changes to my knowledge.
Okay, that being the case, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the agenda.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Paul LaRochelle. Thank you, Mr. Manzioni. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, can I have a vote, please?
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye. Paul Manzioni, aye.
You. The agenda is approved. Okay, moving right along to the new application Z-2106, Z-2107, Jim Rhines, White Mountain Survey Engineering Agent for Jesse and Jeffrey Gold, owners. Jim Rhines, are you out there? No?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Jim.
All right,
There you are.
here I am.
Jim,
So,
welcome.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, and the rest of the board. For the record,
Yep, for 1 second, Jim. Okay, we have to go through your application and make sure that there's nothing in the application, okay, that all of the application is there for the approval. Can you hold on 1 second?
I
Okay.
sure can. I'll
just wanted to
review
make-
myself.
Yep. And that might happen 2 or 3 times because this board sometimes has difficulty with that. And I think the Gobles are here too also. Thank you. Okay, welcome to the variance board.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we accept application Z2106 and Z2107 as complete.
Thanks, Morgan. Thank you. Do I have a second?
I would second that, and request just a bit of discussion, if I may, before vote. And that is that it appears that case Z2106, 07, 08, 09, and 10 are involving parcels that all seem to be depicted on the submitted plan. And I just want to ask if the application with its exhibits and information is applicable to each of those cases that I've just cited, so that once, if we decide it's complete and accepted, it'll be accepted as to all applicable cases. So I guess I would ask Mr. Rhines if this application, Jim, is that applicable to all of the cases for variance this evening?
Yes, it is.
And I think you have some specific narratives and things like that applicable to each of the variances, but the materials, including the plan and so forth, are going to be applicable to each of the cases.
That is correct.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay, so in this discussion, are we approving just 6? I'm sorry, yeah. Are we approving just 6 and 7, or should we be approving all?
No.
6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 because they're.
I think once we accept the application as presented as complete, and now that we understand why it has what it has in it, so if we accept it as complete, then it'll already have been accepted as we move on to the other cases. So we would accept just this application as presented as complete, and then it will apply to the other cases as well.
Just application-wise, but the 3 separate cases, which are all 3 separate parties, even though it's brought by one party, those will all be handled individually.
They'll all be handled individually. We could deny one variance, approve another, et cetera. Every variance is going to have to be addressed individually with the criteria being met or not being met as to each. But the application, as Mr. Rhines has told us, is applicable to each. So once it's accepted, we won't have to do it again as we go to the next case.
Clarified. Thank you.
Okay, so,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
Mr. Chairman, 6 and 7 are one property, which is the Goble property.
yes,
8 and 9 is the Binswanger Matheson property, and then
Yes.
10 is the Freese property.
right.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Right.
John,
You would take 6 and 7. You would take 6 and 7 and deal with that as an individual request. Because it's just one property.
I understand, okay?
Okay.
But right now, we're just approving the applications. And Mr.
Right.
Manzioni, okay, is suggesting that if we approve 6 and 7, we're also approving the applications of 8, 9, and 10.
As complete.
As complete.
Just
Correct.
complete.
Okay,
Right, so that we don't, when we move on to the next case, we're not going to have to accept the application as complete. Once we do it, it applies to the others. And
okay, and we're okay with that.
Right.
Okay, is the Are the board members okay with that?
Yes.
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so that's our discussion, okay? Can I have a vote, please, on the...
Tom Lee.
Tom Lee.
Tim Horton, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Very good. Okay, so all of the applications have been accepted under this 06, 07, 08, 09, and 10 have been accepted as complete. Thank you. Okay. So,
And the only, if I may, Mr. Chairman, the only clarification I'd make in response to John Dever's comment is, while case 06 and 07 may be one property, it is for two separate variances, why it has two numbers, and we could deny one variance and approve the other, deny both, approve both. Each of these variance applications and decisions have to be done separately.
right, all separately, but the owners, the Goebels, are 6 and 7, as John
Right.
indicated. The Matheson and Binswanger is 8 and 9, and the Freeze property is 10.
Correct.
Has everybody got that?
Yes. Just to
Yes.
clarify also, Jim, you are the appointed agent for all three parties, correct?
That is correct. Yes, and I submitted appointment of agent forms on behalf of all parties.
Yeah, they're in there, Tom. He's been appointed for all 5 of the variances, okay? Okay, all right, so, Mr. and Mrs. Goebel, thank you for joining us, okay? And we welcome you. And Jim, if you would like to make your presentation for the, for 06, please, okay? And I guess 07? No, just those, I think we should just do 06 first, okay?
And so just to make sure we're all on the same page, 06 is for the area, is that correct?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, okay.
And 7 is for the frontage.
7 is for the frontage, correct.
Right.
So the plan, and I don't know if the board would prefer I just do an overview first. If I could share my screen, I could put a plan up that the public and the board could look at.
Yes, please, if that would be great.
Okay, and I think, let's see, I just clicked on it. I'm not sure if the all right, here we go. So can everybody see that?
Yes.
Now we can.
Okay. All right, I'm going to, it just said,
We lost you,
Yeah.
Jim.
yeah, it just said that it, for some reason it stopped. Let me try it again. Technical difficulties, I guess.
Computers make everything faster. Ever notice that? Put it up on an easel, it'd be up already. Yep.
Well, that doesn't, can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
We can.
Okay.
Yes.
So for some reason that that did not like it. I'm going to try to get it one more time. I apologize for this delay here. I also had emailed it to the
We have it.
Yeah, we've
It's in
got,
our packet.
we have,
Small.
Jim, we have it. We also
yeah,
have it.
I didn't, Yeah, I send it electronically. I don't know if it's possible for the host to put it up while I'm trying to, I'll just try one more time to,
Josh, that was in a separate email, the last one from Amelia, which was just what he was showing people. Yeah, that's us.
All right, Jim, we've got it.
okay.
And that will be an extra $5, okay? At some point, Jim, you can hand it to anybody at the town, we'll take it back, okay? All right? Okay, but go ahead. All right, we've got it, though. We're in good shape.
So now are you seeing my screen or are you seeing, because I just enlarged it, or are you seeing you're seeing my screen?
Seeing yours.
Okay.
Seeing yours.
Okay, great. So I'm going to zoom in over to the Goebel property here. So right now, what you're seeing, this is Route 28A or East Side Drive. And the Goebel property is this little small piece of land right here, tax map 35, lot 19. There is a blow up of it here to the right, which I'll go over to make it easier to see, but that I just wanted to show you for orientation purposes first. So what this proposal is, right now, the existing boundary line is right here. It's closer to the house, and the property has 20.22 feet of road frontage, and it is 2,339 square feet. And what we're proposing to do is to add this green shaded area to it, which will increase the road frontage by 3.76 feet, making it more conforming. And we're adding 225 square feet to it. So again, we're making both the area and the frontage more conforming, which are the two nonconformities of this lot. The setback is actually compliant for this side at 10.99, where it only requires 10, but we are increasing that to 14.4. So that's the intent of these two requests, is to increase its area, but it will still be non-conforming, and increase its frontage, but the frontage will still be non-conforming. Before I go through the criteria, are there any questions about that?
So Jim, this is Tom Lee. So that area we're talking about, looking down to the right of the house, that is in effect, that's their driveway, and their driveway has, if you want to say, it's been on the other property, so now their driveway will wholly become theirs. Is that fair to say?
Yes, that's the intent of this. I thank you for pointing that out. I neglected to do the whole purpose of this isn't just to make it more conforming, but also to get the Goebel driveway wholly on their property. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yes,
So, Jim, at the widest part, going up toward 28A, what is that additional area that is going to, and I don't mean square footage, the boundary is being moved how much farther over at its widest part?
3.76 feet, Paul.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it tapers down to nothing at the back of the property. So it's a triangular area of 225 square feet, and road frontage is increasing by 3.76 feet.
I'm a little confused by the plan. Are these lots all on the other side of 28A, or are they on the lake side?
They're on the opposite side of 28A. All those are blow-ups. I'll go to the other side, Paul, so that you can see. So here is the lake. This is the edge of the lake right here.
Yeah.
And then here's Route 28 here, or Route 28A, I should say.
Yeah.
And then this is the property in question right here. All I've done over here is show this at a larger scale to make it easier to read.
Got it.
So,
Okay.
so in essence, even though this is our first, just to clarify for anyone that hasn't had a chance to actually read this, the entire, what Jim is trying to do, the intention is to take each of these variances and make them more conforming, okay? These are all parcels that are adjacent to each other, okay? And what Jim is trying to do with the owners is to make them more conforming in non-conforming situations, with the exception, I think, of just one of the parcels, okay? So this is just the beginning, and I want to make the board aware of the fact that Jim has made it very clear that if one of the variances is not approved, then it's going to be difficult for the owners to be able to make their non-conforming more conforming, and they're trying to make it easier for delineation of where buildings are, sheds are, and whatnot, because of the limited properties, the limited size of the properties. I think I've said that right. Am I saying that right, Jim?
Yeah, I think it's the intent of this is to improve the existing situation, existing conditions, and with one exception, I think we've done that. And the one exception that in the last application we'll talk about, that we're diminishing it. I still think that overall it's better land planning, and by the time I'm done,
right.
I hope everyone will agree.
Right. I just wanted to give the overall picture so that we're not just singling out that this is a, even though we have to do it by each variance, there is an overall plan to better this particular part of the community.
That's correct.
Thank you. Okay. More questions? Okay. Then I can go to public input. Do you have anything more you want to say, Jim, before?
I was trying to give you an overview first. I can go through the criteria individually. We've got 5 of these. I've submitted them. If it's the board's pleasure, I'll go through each one of them individually. So it's up to you, but I've submitted why I believe we satisfy the 5 different criteria.
Right. What's the board's pleasure? Go through it, or do we have enough information? Mr. Manzioni?
I would leave it up to the applicant. I mean, it's in the record, written and submitted application, but I wouldn't want to deprive the applicant the opportunity.
Certainly, if you'd like to go through it, Jim, but unless, does anybody see any particular issue with what was already submitted? Tim? Tom? Okay. Mike, have you got any questions?
No.
No? Okay.
The only, if I may, the only other thing I would add is, although we'll be making separate determinations on each of these variances, one being with regard to the, to permit a smaller lot below the 30,000 square feet, and the other being to permit a smaller frontage shorter than 75 feet, I think that Jim's presentation addressed both of those things already as to why they need a smaller frontage and why they need a smaller lot. So
Yes.
I think, you know, we could do actually each of these variances, although we do have to do them separately.
Okay. So I'm going to go to Jim, unless you want to present each and every one, I think we're pretty comfortable with what you've put into the record.
I don't need to belabor it. I think that as long as everyone's comfortable that this is part of the record, I don't need to read it to you and the public unless there's some member of the public who feels that it would be critical for them to hear the rationale for why we believe this variance should be granted.
Well, certainly we'll give you that opportunity to speak once we get through the public portion of it. If you feel it necessary to discuss it with us. Okay.
Fair enough.
Okay. So,
Jim, and I just had one quick question.
yes.
Jim, this is Tom Lee again. So the parcel we're currently talking about is tax map 3519,
Correct.
which actually bisects a part of that two-wood structure. But these other corresponding, or these other abutting parcels are owned by the Gobles, 3518 specifically, 3520. So I'm just making sure otherwise that it's a convoluted type of tax map here, but that's all Goble property that we're talking about. And then we have the G&S property that's on the south end, which, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, the Gobles own 3 taxable lots presently.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so I'm going to go to public input. Is there anyone in the public, okay, that would like to speak in favor of this application? I'm going to repeat, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak against or not in favor of this application? I'm going to say it again. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak not in favor or against this application? Hearing none, public input is closed on this application for application Z21-6. Okay. Jim, is there anything else that you would like to say before we go to a vote on this?
I think I'm comfortable, Mr. Chair, as long as the board doesn't have any other questions.
Are there any other questions by the board to Jim? No. Okay, then let's go to the worksheet. Okay, we're going to go right to the worksheet, Jim.
Okay.
Mr. Manzioni, would you start, please?
Yes, I'll be glad to, Mr. Chairman.
Well, that's so delightful,
Thank you.
Mr. Manzioni.
Thank you, sir. The variance will not be contrary to the public interest. We're talking about case Z2106, which is a variance to permit this lot to be smaller than the minimum 30,000 square feet required in our zoning ordinances. This lot exists long before zoning. That's the reason it's a small lot. The proposal before us will actually increase the space, and it's going to allow the driveway to be completely on it, which is a good thing. So for those reasons, I would find that the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Tim Morgan.
I agree, Frank Rich.
I agree as well, Paul LaRochelle.
All right, in regards to the spirit of the ordinance, I believe the request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. We're actually looking at having less non-conforming area, which it makes sense for the reasons previously stated. So I believe the request is in harmony.
I agree, Tim Morgan.
I agree, Frank Rich.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
I agree, Paul Manzioni.
By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. The value of this improvement to the applicant far outweighs any detriment to the town, to the community as a whole.
I agree, Frank Rich.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
I agree, Paul Manzioni.
I agree, Tom Lee.
Values surrounding properties. This request will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. There has been no evidence from any of the abutters, nor is there any diminution of value. It's just actually making it more better conforming. So I see no diminution of value to any of the surrounding properties on this particular variance.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
I agree, Paul Manzioni. I think that getting the driveway onto one parcel will be a benefit to both parcels being affected.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Tim Morgan.
For the purposes of subparagraph unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, no fair, substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision to the property. No. And the proposed use is a reasonable one, I believe, yes.
I'd like to just clarify if I could.
Yes.
So
No,
if you're in agreement that no variance
should be yes.
It should be yes.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I agree.
All right.
Sorry.
I was just questioning that.
Yep.
And I would agree with that as well. I don't think the purpose of the ordinance is in no way to strictly apply that, given these lots and how small they were and how they predate zoning. To strictly enforce that here would serve no useful purpose at all to the general public. And in fact, this change is going to be better for both lots. I agree. And the proposed use is a reasonable one because the proposed use isn't changing. It's residential use as it's always been. Thank you.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Tim Morgan.
Ran out of pen.
Well,
Have to stop the presses. You got, hold on, Tim's got. Gosh, Tim's got one. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Unbelievable. I'm sorry, where were?
And it was up to you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, That's
that
it.
case, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve application Z 21-06.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. La Rochelle. Okay. All in favor? Mr. Manzioni?
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Tom Lee, aye.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Okay, so that's approved unanimously. Okay, Z 2106.
Thank you very much.
Okay, let's move right on to number 7. Okay? So number 7 is
The frontage, I believe.
frontage. Yes, right. This was the
So,
row. Yep, go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
yeah, I was just going to say, as I've said in the prior discussion, the present frontage on this lot is 20.22 feet, and we are proposing to add 3.76 feet to that, making it more conforming, and so it will then now have 23.98 feet of frontage. So we believe that we're getting the driveway wholly on the lot. We are making it closer to conforming, so we're trying to make it closer to the intent of the zoning ordinance.
Mr. Manzioni.
Jim, does the approval of the prior variance, extending the boundary line over to the adjacent lot, in essence, achieve the same result of the additional footage on the frontage?
I'm not sure I followed that question, Paul.
Okay, so as I understood it, looking at the plan, the prior application for variance was to bring the boundary line over into the other property.
That would be a lot line adjustment, which would be the planning board.
That's true.
What they're looking for is a variance. What we approved is a variance for a sub.
I gotcha, thank you. So it's not a lot line.
This is not a lot line adjustment.
But it will be.
enable a lot line.
Right.
It will
No,
enable.
right, but what I'm saying is, by virtue of the fact that we granted the variance in '06, in case '06, didn't that have the physical effect of, no, because it still needs a legal variance on it. So let me just ask this then, with the, I know, with the, as you extend the, as you add the 2 point, whatever it is, feet to the frontage, does that diminish the frontage of the abutting lot?
No, it diminishes it, but it does not diminish it below the 75-foot requirement. It still
That's
has,
right.
it still has
I
well in
remember reading
excess.
that. Okay, good. Yeah, I just wanted to know that by making this less non-conforming and picking up the extra frontage, would that result in causing a lot that isn't non-conforming to be non-conforming? But you set that forth in the application, and you're saying it now reminds me. Thank you.
Yep.
Does that satisfy your question,
It
Mr.
does.
Manzioni?
Thank you.
Because you definitely confused all the rest of us. Thank you very much for doing that, really. And thank
You knew
you,
the answer
thank,
already.
thank you, Mr. Morgan, for clarifying it for Mr. Manzioni, okay? Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
You did ask the only question that.
You
that
asked
wasn't
your, you asked your own
weren't
question
thinking
and you
otherwise.
answered your own question.
Less
Thank you.
conforming.
Thank you, Mr. Manzioni. Okay, thank you, Jim. Okay, so, where the hell were we?
Public input,
I'm sorry?
public input.
Oh, okay. Any more discussion from anyone?
Just from a technical standpoint, and I think maybe this is somewhat of your question as well, is it really necessary for a second variance where we're talking about a 30,000 square foot area? you have to address the frontage piece as well.
You do.
It's two separate.
You do.
Two separate lots.
Two separate requirements. Right.
Well, yeah, because it has its two separate instances, it's two separate things that they're looking for.
It's, yeah.
Are you okay, Tom?
I am.
You good? All right, good. All right, so we're going to go to public input. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? I'm going to ask again, is there anyone in the public that would like to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone opposed or not in favor of this application? Hearing, saying one more time, is there anyone opposed or not in favor of this application? Hearing none, public input is closed. Jim, unless you have anything else to say, we're going to go right to the work.
Go for it.
Thank you, Jim. Okay. I think, Tim, I'm going to ask you to start, okay?
In regards to public interest, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
I agree. The public interest is to try and have conforming lots, and although this is non-conforming, it becomes less non-conforming as a result of this request.
For the same reasons I agree, Frank Rich.
Same reasons, Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. The reason I asked about the boundary line is because if we found all the criteria to be met with that, that would have the same, that would affect that frontage. And even though we don't do boundary line adjustments, I think that's what they were at, that's what the effect of that was, right? They were moving the boundary line over to give the driveway all onto one lot, which we can't do. I understand we can't do that. But we said we're granting a variance to allow that lot to exist in that configuration. Now they got to go to the planning board to actually make it happen, right? But I think all the same criteria that, well, it is road frontage. But anyway, okay, I'm just trying to work this through. But I agree that it will not be contrary to the public interest.
Paul, to your point, if you recall, in the application from John Devers, his commentary,
No.
The planning board asked them to come to the variance
Right.
concerning this, okay?
Right.
To get that variance, okay, because they were not comfortable in authorizing the, without the variance being
Yeah, they
approved.
can't, right.
Okay,
That's appropriate.
Right.
which was appropriate, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
The request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. The spirit of the zoning ordinance is to try to create conformity and uniformity in health and safety in the various areas where it's applied, and in this case, the application is moving more towards conformity with the ordinance.
I agree. Frank Rich?
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
Paul Manzioni, I agree.
Tom Lee, I agree.
Point of order,
So
Mr.
Steve-
Chair.
Yes.
Did everyone around the table speak to the first criteria? I lost track as Paul was asking questions, and I wasn't sure if everybody had a chance to weigh in on the first criteria.
I believe we did.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to check. I lost track, so I apologize.
Well, it's obvious that you could lose track, okay, when we have a board member that, likes to elaborate on certain things. I lost track myself. Thank you.
Okay,
For mentioning
well, he's very thorough.
Well, some have said that. There are others that disagree, but certainly he is a charge, okay? Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rhines, for
Thank you.
mentioning that, but bringing it up. Yep. Now, where was I? I was going to substantial justice. Thank you, Mr. Boyd. Okay, now I'm totally confused, okay? But we're gonna go to substantial justice. The granting of this variance, substantial justice will be done. There is no reason, again, because it's bringing the lot into more conformity, okay? And it's not affecting any of the neighbors or any of the community, but enhancing it, I believe substantial justice will be done for all.
I agree as well, Paul LaRochelle.
Paul Manzioni, I agree, and particularly so given that the abutting lot will not end up being more non-conforming because of this change.
Lee, I agree.
Morgan, I agree.
The request will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. No factual evidence has been given. By granting this variance, there's no factual evidence of anything, of any properties being diminished in value.
Paul Manzioni, I agree.
Lee, I agree.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
For purposes of the subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, one, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. And I would say yes to that because there's no fair and substantial relationship for the general public purpose of this ordinance. This change does not in any way compromise the public purpose of this ordinance, given that it results in the lot becoming less non-conforming. And then two, the proposed use is a reasonable one, and yes to that as well, because as I've said in the last variance request, the use is not changing, it remains residential. And so I say yes to number two.
Lee, I agree.
Tim Morgan, it strikes me that paragraph I must have been written by an attorney in the legislature because it's the most convoluted damn sentence in the
I still don't understand it.
I agree with Mr. Manzioni's.
Yes. It's confusing.
Contrary to what I believe Mr. Manzioni said, I will agree with. I agree.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
Mr. Chairman, in light of these votes, I would make a motion that we grant the application for variance of case Z21-07.
I'll second the motion.
Mr. Manzioni, second by Mr. Morgan. Okay. May I start with you, Mr.
Tom Lee.
Tom Lee. Geez, Sullivan. Tom Lee.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Okay, so that's approved. Z21-07 unanimously. Okay.
Thank you
Moving
very
right
much.
along. Yes, Jim, I'm sorry.
No, I just said thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. So that's those two, and the Goebel's still there?
I see them.
You see them?
Yeah, I
Well,
think
Mr.
they're
Mi-
muted.
Yeah,
They're
we're good.
muted?
Yes, hello.
Okay. Thank you very much. We wish you good luck, and sorry we had to put you through that boring variance, but just try to keep it going. We're wishing you the best, okay?
Thank you so
We
much.
appreciate your good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, James, you're up again.
Okay. So this is, I'm going to move the plan now. I say I am. Let me see if I am. So to orient the board and the audience, now we're on the other side, and this is case Z2108 and 09, which are for the Binswanger and the Matheson property. And presently, so here, to orient everyone, here the lake is over here to the far left, Route 28A or East Side Drive. And now I'm going to pan over to the blow up to make it easier to see what's going on here. So in this instance, the existing boundary line passes through the existing shed from this iron pipe down to this point. And the proposal will be that when we go to the planning board, we will adjust the line so that we're a half a foot off the shed at this corner. And we will be adding 198 square feet to the Matheson Binswanger lot. So we are increasing its area. We are not altering its road frontage, and we are, though the setback is still in violation, it is making it so that the shed is wholly on the lot. And I would also point out that this shed is smaller than the requirement, the maximum requirement for a shed. So the setback is not applicable, I believe, to the smaller shed, but it does end up when we get to another variance for the last variance, we have to decrease the non-conforming setback to the garage slightly to get the shed wholly on the Matheson Binswanger lot. So that's an overview. I'd be happy to answer questions.
Questions?
A quick question. Can you tell us what the size of that lot is? You say it's less than the required amount. What is the size of it? How many square feet?
Lot 3522A is existing is 17,403 square feet. So it's slightly more than half of the 30,000 square foot requirement.
Thank you.
More questions?
Yeah, what will,
Yes, Paul.
Jim, what would be the actual distance from the property line now after
If you approve this, yeah, if you approve this variance and then we go to the zone, to the planning board and they approve the boundary line adjustment, the roadside overhang will be a half a foot off of the shed, and it will increase as it goes toward the back to 1.5 feet.
1.5.
Yeah.
As it exists now, it's totally on the property line.
Yeah, it's right now it's 2 point, give me just a second. Right now it is 2.59 feet onto the Freeze property. And by adjusting this, it will be a half a foot away and on their own property.
So Jim, this is Tom Lee. So just to be clear, the Z2108, you're asking for a variance to permit the shed within 10 feet of the property line setback. That's this portion of it.
Yes, it's yes.
Paul, before I ask you, I apologize. Is Constant or Dorothy with us on this, or just yourself, Jim?
I see,
Fiona?
I see at the bottom, Connie Matheson is, I see her name down there and is presently muted.
Okay. So I just wanted to let her know that we welcome her, okay? And thank you for coming in. But I just wanted to recognize that she's here. Okay, thank you.
Okay. And as I mentioned before, I've been appointed as an agent to represent them
Yes.
on this
Right.
application.
Right. Mr. Manzioni, you had a question.
Yes, thank you. What's the total square footage of the shed?
I had calculated that at one point, Paul, and could I ask John Dever? I know it's just below. It's like 3 or 4 square feet below the shed requirement that's in the zoning, and I forget if that's 150 feet or 250 feet, but it's whatever that is. It's about 3 feet less than that.
The minimum requirement for a permit is 120 square feet.
Okay, so that's then that is. Let's see. I've got a scale here. If I'm going to step away from the screen and grab a scale, hang on.
Yeah. I mean, the reason I'm asking is because if it's below the requirement, then he doesn't need the variance.
No, it's a structure of any kind requires a variance.
So
Would they come to me with this? It would, even if it doesn't require a permit, it still has to meet setbacks.
I see. So so it's below the size requiring a building permit, but and I thought, and I was of the mistaken impression that if it was in the requirement where it doesn't need a building permit, then the setback didn't apply. But you're saying any structure, even a smaller structure, has to be
Correct.
out of the setback.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are you all set, Mr.
I am,
Manzioni?
thank you.
Okay, do you need to know what the square footage?
No, because the reason I was asking that question is because if Jim had told us that it was below that square footage, then I was questioning why you needed a variance, but John clarified it. I was on the Yeah, I mean, I don't always remember these and have them memorized, but that seemed to be in my head. Yeah. Oh, I got the book right here.
Shocking that he would not remember that. Unbelievable. Okay. Why do we have you on this board?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Jim, we don't need the square footage. Okay.
Okay. Yep. Very good.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? Okay. Jim, with your permission, I'm gonna go to public input. Okay, unless you have something else to say.
I have nothing to add unless there's more questions.
Okay. Okay, going to public input. Is there anyone in the public audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? I'm going to say it again. Is there anyone in the public audience that would like to speak in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone in the audience that would like to oppose this application or not in favor of this application? I'm going to say it again. Is there anyone in the public that would like to oppose or not be in favor of this application? Hearing none, I'm going to close it to the public, and What is the board's pleasure? Shall we go to the worksheet?
Yes,
Or does there need to be any discussion? Worksheet? Okay, please. All right. Tim, if you would start us off?
Sure, the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The public interest here is to come into conformity with the zoning ordinances, and this brings us a little closer to conformity.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. It will not be contrary to the public interest.
Only I agree.
The request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience and health and safety and character of the district within which it is proposed. This is absolutely in the spirit of the ordinance. It is taking the shed and now moving it, or giving them the opportunity to move the shed onto one property. Even though it's non-conforming, it's less non-conforming than what we had before in what was present.
I agree, Paul LaRochelle.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. It's in harmony.
Only I agree.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. As Mr. Rich pointed out, this is making this a less non-conforming shed and making this a little more in harmony between the two properties.
Paul Manzioni, I agree. Substantial justice will be done.
Only I agree.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
You have to vote?
You have to vote.
Didn't I do spirit of ordinance?
No, you just have to vote on my.
Oh, I agree. I'm sorry, I agree.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about that.
The request will not diminish the value of the surrounding properties. There's been no evidence presented tonight from public or otherwise that this will in any way diminish value of surrounding properties.
Only I agree.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
In regards to hardship, for purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship, which means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area. 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. I believe, yes, it does not compromise the general public purpose of the ordinance provision. And the proposed use is a reasonable one. I agree, yes.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree as well.
Paul Manzioni, I agree.
Okay, may I get a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve application Z21-08.
I'll second.
Second by Mr. LaRochelle. Okay, all in favor?
Aye, Tom Lee.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Okay, that's unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right on to Z21-9. Jim, you're up. Is there anything you'd like to say on behalf? Now, this is for the variance to do what? Okay?
This is related to lot area. Again, as I said, the existing lot is 17,403 square feet, and we will be increasing it to 17,601 square feet. So it will still be non-conforming, but it will be less non-conforming. Or more non-conforming. Or more conforming, excuse me.
It would be, it will be more conforming.
Yes,
Right?
more conforming, correct.
More conforming by 601 feet, right, or something like that.
By
Right.
198 square feet,
198 square feet, okay,
yes.
okay. More non-conforming.
No, more conforming,
More conforming.
more conforming, less non-conforming.
Pages over the internet, but it's seems to be working, the Jim, and
Like a,
How are we doing? Are we pretty confused right now? Okay.
Spreading the Jim.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's more conforming
Right.
by 198 square feet.
That's correct.
There we go.
But Mr. Chair, may I ask a question?
You may,
regarding that?
Mr. Monsione.
Jim, what does it do with regard to the conforming character of the abutting lot? That this square footage is coming from someplace, so it's coming from the abutting lot? How
That
does
is
that
correct.
leave? So how does that leave that lot that's giving up 198 square feet as far as its conformance or non-conformance go?
So I will show you that the whole picture, Paul. So this lot here, 3522, the existing freeze lot, is going to give up this green portion and this yellow portion. And their existing lot is 19,000 square feet. So it would be less conforming, but at the same time, we go to the planning board for the boundary line adjustments. We are adding all of this area right here from the Capitola property. That's a very large parcel in the back. So this lot will go from 19,487 square feet to 1.17 acres. So it will be nearly twice the minimum lot size. So I think it wouldn't necessarily be unreasonable if the board is uncomfortable about that, to put a condition that
Right.
that variant, the last variance that we're going to ask for, which is 3522, be granted with the stipulation conditioned on
On the planning board
on the
approval.
planning
planning
board
board.
approving the boundary line adjustment for the rear.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
To further address your question, it is going to create some less conformity with respect to the garage on 3522.
Yes, it will.
The garage will get a little closer to the lot line. Jim, how close is it before the lot line adjustment? What's the difference, distance to that?
So before the lot line, it is just under the required 10 feet. It is 9.67 feet presently, and it would get reduced down to 5.65. But at least the buildings would be on the correct lots.
Right.
Does reduce it, 4 or 5 feet.
5 feet.
But now the building is on the correct lots.
Sure, I appreciate it, yeah.
Yeah. It's,
And it has to be
Kind of-
with a condition,
right.
with a condition that
I'm sorry?
it would have to be a condition put on with this in order to be able to have the lot in the back of it to make it
Not with this one, but with the next one.
the next one, yes.
It's the next one. So we don't need a condition on this one,
No.
right?
Would be the-
I think we do.
You do?
Yeah. Because,
It's making it more non-conforming.
well, it's making the abutting lot more non-conforming. The abutting lot right now, no, wait a minute.
No, it's making the garage more non-conforming by reducing it from 9 feet to 5
The
feet.
5 feet.
This owner of the one we're considering now wouldn't have any way to enforce a condition because it's a condition that somebody else has to carry out. They couldn't enforce it. The condition's gonna have to be that the last application, whatever, 10,
Right.
10, that would have a condition, but the owners of 2109 couldn't enforce that.
But, So, the lot that's in question here for, 09, that's gonna increase in it from its current size,
Right.
but still be below the minimum,
Right.
which is why the variance is needed. And then when I ask the question, what's it going to do to the conformance or non-conformance of the lot, where it's getting the 198 square feet? I thought that that was gonna result in a more non-conforming situation for the lot that's giving up the 198 square feet. But there's a plan that that lot is gonna take up that other bigger lot and then end up being twice the size. So what I was suggesting we do is to say, well, since you're gonna grab 198 square feet from an abutting lot, which will result in that abutting lot being more non-conforming, we would impose a condition on granting this variance that says unless that lot that you're taking the land from, unless it goes forward with its plan to do a boundary line adjustment and gets approved by the planning board to pick up all that extra land and therefore eliminate that non-conforming result, even though they don't have the control over that, if that doesn't happen, of course, if that doesn't happen, I don't think this variance can happen anyway, but I think it would be a proper condition on it to make sure that.
I'm just concerned about the equity of requiring somebody putting a condition on somebody that has to be carried out by somebody.
Somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah, but if we granted the variance and we don't put that condition and they go ahead with it and they take the 200 feet and the other people never get that additional lot, then our granting of this variance will have the net result of causing another lot, which isn't even part of this application, to become more non-conforming. So,
but you're right. I mean, you're right. It bothers me.
Yeah, I got it.
What bothers you?
Putting a condition on the application for 2109 that has to be carried out by somebody else.
Right.
He has no way to do it or to enforce it.
Mr. Chairman, may I offer a comment?
Sure.
Please do.
Please, help us.
Yeah, well, there was a reason. I submitted this all as one sort of variance initially, and then the planning department, asked if we could sort of separate it so that you guys could be taking actions individually. But I really think it's a global concept. The concern that Paul has now, he didn't raise on the earlier one, which was the same. It has the same issue. When we took the amount of square footage, which I'm shooting myself in the foot, but when we took 225 square feet away from 3522 before, it wasn't brought up. And now that we're taking another 198 square feet, it's being brought up. And I see that it's a valid point. I'm wondering if, because we submitted the boundary line adjustment application before submitting any variance applications, because the planner's initial reaction to this was that no variances were needed. But then, so we submitted it and public notice went out, and then it was like, wait a minute, now that we've looked at this again and deeper, we think we need a bunch of variances. And so the hearing would have occurred, the public hearing for the boundary line adjustments would have occurred before this meeting, but for the timing. So this is, the wheels are in motion, the abutters have been notified, everyone's intent is to go forward. I don't know that while it may psychologically allay some of Paul's concerns, it doesn't, I guess legally it doesn't change, it doesn't allay them, but I wanted to offer that out so that you had more of a global overview of the process and where we are in the process.
Yeah, I think making these lot line adjustments at the planning board level would, in essence, be creating new lots. That's the net legal effect of getting a boundary line adjustment. You're creating a new lot. And if you're
Correct.
creating a new lot that doesn't comply with the current zoning, you do need the variances. And I think
Correct.
and I think each of these variances had to be dealt with separately. And I mean, even an imposition now of this one condition, whether we do it here or on the next application, would, in essence, prevent probably all of this from going forward unless the planning board approves it anyway. And none of this can happen unless the planning board approves it anyway. But
Right, I think your action, if you grant the variance, that gives them the ability to go forward with it. If the boundary line adjustments don't go forward, then nothing changes. Your variance doesn't go anywhere. It sort of dies on the vine. Yeah.
But we have those kinds of conditions all the time that we impose on the granting of an application. Like, for example, that you get a DES approval for your septic on a special exception, which concerns itself with adequate sewage and water supply. We impose these conditions all the time, which are legal obligations of the applicant anyway. But to kind of, a belt and suspenders type approach, we oftentimes will say, we'll grant it, but only if you get the appropriate approvals from the governmental entities or what have you. So I still think it's a good idea, whether we put it in this one and maybe we didn't have it in the others or whatever. But if somewhere along the line, since all of these rise and fall together anyway, and they're all required to go to the planning board, I think somewhere along the line, just as an express condition, it would probably be a good idea for us to impose one if we're going to grant it. That way we know there's an assurance that they got to go to the planning board for this all to work, in case there was something that could avoid that, for what it's worth.
I'm comfortable with doing that for 10.
Yeah.
Just personally not comfortable with doing it for 9.
I get it.
Where I was going with it is if we imposed any condition, it would be on 2110, who is you want to call it the global party here. In that condition, if he is set forth for 10, then it automatically embraces the other two.
That's right.
Control.
If you do it on 10, it's all going to be all encompassing.
It encompasses all of it,
All of it.
and I thought it would be just 10.
Are you comfortable with that,
I
Paul?
am, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a better way to go. Yeah.
Does that mean that this should have all been one application as opposed to 5 separate ones then?
No, you got all separate properties and all different variances. You got for frontage, you got for setbacks.
But they're all contingent on that one?
Yeah, but still, everyone had to be looked at. I mean, for example, if that shed, they want to go into the side setback with a shed, let's say they wanted to put, a factory on the side setback, we might have said no to that request. So I think that this was absolutely the proper procedure for the applicants to use, to get each separate variance regarding frontage, regarding lot size, regarding side setbacks. All that, I think, had to be looked at separately, even though in the end it all ties together.
Does it matter where that extra parcel is coming from? Do we know the relationship between 9 and 10?
No, but that's up to the applicants to achieve. They have to accomplish that. And if, among themselves, they have to make the deals and agree to the lot line adjustments and go to the planning board and make it all happen.
That's not a concern for this committee?
That all
It isn't for our purposes,
It all falls on the planning board.
It falls into the planning board, and if that property is not acquired, then all of this was.
all moot, yeah.
No, none of it's gonna happen.
I assume the relationship is in place as it's
All or
gonna
nothing.
I'm saying that right.
And to Jim's point that he brought up, we didn't have this conversation on 6 and 7.
Right.
But now that we can condition 10, it incorporates 6 and 7, 8, 9. So it
Yes. Check.
Yes. Okay, so, Mr. Manzioni, I'm gonna say this one more time. You're comfortable now?
I am,
Okay?
yes. Thank you.
He's comfortable now, Mr. Moore. Okay, I just wanted to let you know that. Okay, he's comfortable.
I'm good.
Okay, good.
He's also.
Okay, so are
Calming.
you comfortable that he's comfortable? Thank you. Okay. Okay.
I forget where we are in the process.
I don't even, where are we?
I think
Okay.
we'd be.
Are we on 10 yet? No? Okay, okay. We're going to public?
Public input at this point.
Public input. Beautiful. Beautiful. Oh, I can't wait to get out of this chairmanship. I really can't. Public input. So, we're gonna go to public input, Jim, unless you have anything else.
I have nothing else to add at this point unless there's questions from the board or the public.
Okay, so we're gonna go to public input. Is there anyone in the public that is in favor of this application? I'm going to ask one more time, is there anyone in the public that's in favor of this application? Hearing none, is there anyone in the public that is against or not in favor of this application? One more time, is there anyone opposed or not in favor of this application? Hearing none, public input is closed. Okay, discussion. Any discussion? I think we had enough discussion on this, okay? Shall we go to the worksheet?
Yes.
Okay? All right. And I'm going to ask you, Ms. La Rochelle, okay, if you would start,
I
please.
certainly will.
And then you go to Mr. Manzioni, okay? Thank you.
The variance will not be contrary to the public interest.
Paul Manzioni, I agree.
Humbly, I agree.
Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
The request is in harmony with the spirit of the zoning ordinance, the intent of the master plan, and with the convenience, health, safety, and character of the district within which it is proposed. These are lots that were created a long time ago before zoning. The net effect of what's being requested here, I think, will ultimately make all of these lots more usable and without having any adverse impact on the town. And for that reason, I believe it's in harmony with the zoning ordinance and the intent of the master plan.
Humbly, I agree.
Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul La Rochelle, I agree.
That's a substantial justice. By granting the variance, substantial justice will be done. I think it certainly turns a non-conforming lot to become more conforming with properties, with the two items, the garage and the shed now on.
I agree. I think substantial justice will be done because the benefit to the applicant outweighs any detriment to the community.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul La Rochelle, I agree for the same reasons.
Paul Manzioni, I agree.
The request will not diminish the value of surrounding properties. We've had no testimony with respect to change in value, but it would seem on the face of it that getting sheds on the property of the owner is not going to diminish property values.
I agree. Frank Rich?
I agree, Paul La Rochelle.
I agree, Paul Manzioni.
I agree, Tom Lane.
For purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, that no fair or substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of the provision to the property. Yes. And the proposed use is a reasonable one. Yes. Again.
I agree, Paul La Rochelle.
I agree, Paul Manzioni.
I agree, Tom Lane.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
Okay, that's great.
Chairman, I move that we accept application, rather approve application Z21-09.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Do I have a second?
Paul Manzioni, I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Manzioni. Okay. Tim, could you? Aye.
Aye, Tom Lee.
Aye, Tim Morgan.
Aye, Frank Rich.
I, Paul LaRochelle.
Aye, Paul Manzioni.
Okay, great. Moving right along. Okay, so, thank you, Jim, on Z, 8 and 9, and thank you, owners, Constant and Dorothy, if you're out there, we appreciate it, and we want to wish you good luck, with the planning board. Okay.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, moving right along. Jim, Z20.
This is Connie Matheson. I just want to say thank you. And a lot of these things are also non-conforming. George Freezer, Jeff is my cousin, and, you know, our dads and then our grandparents owned this property, and the sheds and the garages used to be for their horses and ponies. So, you know, things have just developed over the years. So thanks for looking at all this and helping us out. We appreciate it.
That's what we're here for, is to try to accommodate whenever we can, but most of the time we have to make sure that we put it on the record so that you, as an owner, can never be challenged with what we said or did. Sometimes it's painstaking to make sure that we do it right, okay, and that it's in the record. We're just happy that you're an owner and a resident of this wonderful little town. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, been there up there for about 100 years, so it's a pretty special place to us. So thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Jim.
All right.
So
Z20.
Z21-10, the Freeze property, the Freeze property, and is Mr. Freeze, is George Freeze here? Is he available? I don't know if he's there or not, but welcome.
I don't believe so. I think I'm here representing the Freeze, George Freeze, the third.
Sure.
Revocable trust.
Okay. Yep.
So this is the final straw, if you will. So the variance that we're seeking here is the setback to the garage. The frontage is fully conforming, even though we took a little bit away in the first variance that we requested. And when we go to the zoning board, when we go to the planning board, they'll be acquiring this 31,845 square feet to be added to their property. So they'll be well in excess. They're adding more than the minimum lot size to their.
Morgan, I agree.
Values of surrounding properties. The request will not diminish the values of surrounding properties.
I agree. There was no evidence at all to establish that any properties will be diminished by this request.
I agree, Tom Lee.
I agree, Tim Morgan.
Frank Rich, I agree.
For purposes of this subparagraph, unnecessary hardship means that owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, 1, no fair and substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. I don't see that a specific application or strict enforcement of this, given that these lots existed long before zoning, and that the improvements that are being proposed by and large will have the net effect of making them less non-conforming. And so I would say yes to that. And the proposed use is a reasonable one. Once again, the proposed use is not changing. It remains residential use. And so for that reason, I say yes to that as well.
Tom Lee, I agree.
Tim Morgan, I agree.
Frank Rich, I agree.
Paul LaRochelle, I agree.
Okay. May I-
So I would make a motion that we grant the application for variance for case Z21-10, but we do so on the specific condition that the applicant obtain all of the necessary approvals for the proposed lot line adjustments that have been described in these various applications, that approval be obtained from the planning board.
Does it require the acquisition of that piece of property? Do you think that that condition includes the acquisition of that extra parcel?
I think that if we state the condition that the requirement is that they get the approval from the planning board, then I think whatever is required to get that approval, if it includes the acquisition, would be implied in that. And I think just, the planning board's gonna be the one to approve this based on a number of factors. So I think by saying the condition is that they obtain the approval from the planning board, implied in that will be a number of things.
Okay, so second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Okay. All in favor? Tom?
Tom Lang, aye.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Okay, that's unanimous on that one, Jim. And
Thank you very
so,
much.
Jim, I want to, on behalf of the board, I'd like to commend you for not only a great overall description but great land planning for all of your constituents overall. I think you did the best you could possibly do based on the limited land masses that you had and the buildings not being where, lot lines are or anything else. And thank you for working on this as well as you. It was very convoluted, I'm sure, but I think you did the best that you possibly could do for your clients and for the town and the community at large. So thank you.
All right, well, thank you very much and appreciate all of your work on this. And you guys, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and you can have a good night.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Hey, Josh, are we all done with the public? Yep. Oh, we got to keep going.
We're
with
still in public session.
Yeah, public session, but, okay, but we're all done with that. Oh, that's so good of you. Okay,
And I have a headache.
That's lousy. Nobody's each
No.
day.
I think the next time, John, we'd love to have like maybe 7 or 8 of these all at once, down in Alton Bay, so we,
I'll see what I can do, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that would be nice, okay? Because, we like to have, a little bit of differentiation and changes, okay? But this was a very interesting one, but very important. I think, and John, you did a good job in letting the applicants know what you thought was needed. So thank you. Okay. Okay, previous business. Do we have any previous business that we need to talk about? John?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
So nothing left over from the past, I gather, is what previous business means. I'm not sure.
There's a lot of things I'd like to talk to you about in the past, but not at this board level.
No. We're going to new business. I just want to raise an issue on new business that I thought occurred to me tonight, and that was, and I think I can't remember because I've done a couple of ZBA meetings in other places by Zoom, and I was representing people at them, and both of them, one was down in Massachusetts, but the one, I can't remember the one I did up here, but I did one recently, and what they said was under 91A, I think it is, the right to know statute, they required that anybody in the room or anybody present by way of Zoom identify themselves. So you know how when we had, in the old days before the pandemic, people came into this room, we had a sign-in sheet, and we would ask everybody to sign in so that we had a record. And I, realized in thinking about that there was probably a 91A, a right to know law requirement of who was present at what. When we do the Zoom stuff, other than the people who are speaking, we have no idea who's there. Now, I don't know. I mean, obviously, there are exceptions in light of the fact that we're doing things differently. But I wonder going forward if we should, or at least think about saying at the beginning of the meeting, as we would ask them to sign in, we say, listen, if you're present and you're out there and you're in the public and you're on Zoom, is there some way they can identify themselves? Usually their name comes up on the screen, and they have the right to turn off the video and turn off the audio. So they sit there, you see a black square with the name, but they're here, they're with us, so everybody knows who's listening.
So, Josh, do you collect that information? In other words, if there's someone there in the public, but because usually we'll know if it's the applicant and the person that's applying. Do you have some sort of a recording of who else was in that call?
No, there's no way to record it. You have to write down who was on in the meeting.
Paul.
I think if it makes you feel any better, they're all other meetings that have been performed on Zoom, including the selectmen meetings. There's no information of the input people. People will call up and they will listen to the meeting. If they have a comment, they're instructed to sign, send a letter and send it in, or email their comments so that we can address it at the next meeting. So that's how that's done. I would think if there was anything that was needed to be done more than that, the town administrator would have informed every board and everyone that we had to have the public input give us their names. So thus far, none of that has happened.
I think if somebody has public input, we should know their name.
Yeah. Right.
But I don't know that we need to know who's out there, because if we were being videotaped, for example, people could watch it tomorrow and we'd have no idea that they were doing.
They might chime in later in the meeting and not even be there.
Yeah, that would be my concern. If we start the meeting, what if someone chimes in afterwards before I ask the question? Please announce yourself. How many times am I going to do it?
Right. No, but because when we were in person, people had to sign in. So if somebody came in late, I've stopped meetings and said, excuse me, sir, you just came in, sign in, So we always, and I think that was a requirement under right to know law, under 91A, at least for ZBA. Now, I don't know if the same provision would apply to like a selectman meeting.
Selectman meeting, people came in, when we were open to the public, if people came in the building, there was a sign sheet.
Right.
Everybody that comes in, we sign and they sit down. Same thing, but this has not been required since we've gone to Zoom.
Right.
What happened in the other jurisdictions where you were doing it? Did they ask for that information?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, and they specifically referenced the right to know law. We need to know who's here under the right to know law.
Maybe we should ask Sessler for.
Yeah, good opinion on that. With any luck, we'll be out of this, we hope, and we could spend the whole way, I'm
It's
sure.
been a year we've been doing this.
I know that, yeah.
Not if Dr. Fauci can help it.
Well,
Okay, but, we're not going to be out of this for a number of years. Isn't he one of the, follow the science, whatever? I'm sorry.
We should throw him out on his head.
I will bring that up with Attorney Sessler and Liz.
Yeah, that'd be great, John, if you could. But it's a good
Yeah.
point, Paul.
Yeah.
Thank you. And wasn't that Berlin that you were doing that up there? Wasn't that the place, or Pittsburgh, or?
I was in Plainfield.
In Plainfield, that's where it did. Yeah, okay. All right. 2021 town elections.
Mm-hmm.
That's new business. What do we need?
What do you want to, the town elections, you want to talk about who got in? I'm sure everybody knows.
I think unless anybody has any questions on it, I was just interested to see that we have a new selectman.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yes, we do.
I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah. So Whitman is no longer selectman. It's not Scott, no. Mr. Mitchell, I'm thinking of his first name.
Brandon.
Sorry? Yes. Brandon. Yes, Mitchell. Is
Brandon
now-
Mitchell?
Yeah, is the new selectman,
Ah,
who has been sworn in and hasn't attended a meeting as of yet, which would be this coming Wednesday.
he'll be attending?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And how
He's
long is his term? 3 years?
Yes,
Wow,
he's in for 3 years, yeah.
interesting.
And just about everybody else, pretty much got in where they were before,
Right.
in most things. All the zoning amendments all passed except one, which was the
Lumberyard.
lumberyard. That was the only one. Most of them, they all passed otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah, that, people still don't get it.
They don't get it.
But what are you gonna do?
Importantly, I understand, Mr. Chairman, you were elected back.
Yeah, I heard it was close, okay? I heard it was
Spent $4
very
million
close.
in this campaign.
Closest one-horse race there was.
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, it was heavily supported by the Libertarian, group, okay? You know?
I heard he was electioneering out online, trying to sway votes, in violation of election law, but he snuck it on.
Who else was there? Who else on the ZBA was running? Was only the one that he did?
Right.
Okay.
I'm sorry, his name, the selectman's name is Brock. I'm sorry, it's not.
Brock,
it was-
that's
it's
right, yeah.
Brock.
Is he been a longtime resident?
About, what, John, 3 to 5 years?
Yeah, I would say that.
His wife is the department head for the water department,
Oh, wow,
Courtney Mitchell.
okay. You know, I just thought it was very interesting, okay? Phil's been around for a long time.
Yeah, and he did 3 terms,
Yeah,
so,
wow.
yeah, he did well. He did a good job, and I think he did very, very well.
Great, okay. Anybody got any more questions about the elections? Okay. Just thinking about that, who's up for ZBA this coming year? One of us
I do
must
not
be.
know.
I don't know. We'll find out eventually.
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, John, can you let us know who's up? Okay, so that, we can, try to get funding for that person to join us again, okay, or whatever.
Plan strategy?
Yeah, we gotta go early on that one, okay?
I will do
Okay,
that.
zoning amendment changes, you mentioned there was just one
That did not pass.
that did not pass, and that was the lumberyard,
Columbia, yeah,
but all of the other ones did pass.
they all passed.
Right.
Yes.
Okay, next is volunteers for the Zap Committee. Do I have any volunteers?
Now, is it necessary to have a Zap committee again, John? I mean,
Yes.
okay. Because we really beat that to the ground this last time.
Yeah, I mean,
There's constantly
General-
changes, but
Okay.
we're constantly making, looking at making changes with the changing times. And lumberyard's a good example. All of us are growing up. If you went to the lumberyard to buy your building materials, but there's people who assume a lumberyard is a place where you saw lumber.
right.
So, to try to keep things updated, correct things that there may be inequities or that are no longer applicable.
One thing I can add, John, is working the polls. A lot of conversation was on how many zoning or amendments we were putting out there.
We gotta do
And the
it.
general consensus with people are really getting fed up with the amendments. And how many different ones were, but we had 45.
No, you have
Some-
warrant articles, but you did not have zoning amendments.
Huh?
Not 45 zoning,
I'm sorry, 45 of
Warrant articles.
actual amendments.
yeah, articles.
Articles, I'm
Warrant
sorry.
articles.
Warrant articles, thank you. Warrant articles, we had 45. And it was just too many is the general consensus.
It's 3 hours of work when you go in the booth there.
People were coming out of the booths really like, really, is this necessary, all of this? So some of the things we have to think about, that's all.
All right.
Okay,
Good.
do
We
I,
generally try to keep the zoning amendments to, 10 at the most. We don't want to overload the voters with
Right.
zoning amendments.
Right,
So
right.
we really
No, I
work
thought
very
that was-
hard.
Yeah,
Well, with these,
I didn't
with,
feel
with the
zoning.
approvals of the ones that we got this year, do you think, John, that there are gonna be 10? Do you think we can limit it down to 4 or 5, maybe? Do you
Well,
think?
we'll look, but we've got, one of the things we discovered was we have warehouse in 2 different spots. And in one spot, it's allowed in the rural zone, and the other spot, it's not allowed in the rural zone.
Mhm.
So we have other things, you know, changes in planning and land use law and things that we're trying to keep current. So it's, the zoning ordinance is a living document. We have got to, you know, if we don't keep up, it becomes a problem.
yeah,
And we're not looking to make work for ourselves, and we're not looking to just change for the sake of change. What we're doing is valid.
yeah. Right. So who's on the ZAC right now? At present, who was on the last ZAC? Tom?
Myself, Paul, Scott Williams, Drew Carter.
But from ZBA, who was on? Oh,
It was us three.
I mean, I'll do it again. I wasn't very attentive the last time. I got to do better. But I'm more than happy to keep trying to do it. I just got caught up with the CIP and,
Are
you
you
know.
still on CIP?
I am.
There's a lot going on.
And I'm gonna tell you, Paul, to me, the CIP is very important. to
Yeah, yeah.
Try to keep the tax rate below $1 in the CIP. And
Absolutely.
it's a constant battle
Yeah.
to keep it there, because we've got to be looking out 10, 15, 20 years. And the roads are very important, and making sure that we're spending $1 million a year on roads, you know,
Yeah.
that starts to limit the, what else we can do, you know?
Right.
You know,
Right.
if we're gonna keep that tax rate below
Right.
on the capital improvements, you know?
Right.
And that's not inclusive of any new buildings, none.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
a police station,
Right.
fire safety station, which is a big issue. And as long as I can, I want to try to stay on that
Yeah.
so.
Is Mike eligible, being an alternate?
Yeah,
So.
can an alternate do it?
Yeah.
Mike, would you be interested
Zoning board or-
in doing the ZAC? John, can Mike as a substitute, or can he?
I don't see why not, but I can verify that.
I mean, he's a resident, you know?
Right.
How often is ZAC going to meet? Initially,
5 to 6 weeks. It's in the fall.
right,
She was in fall, yeah.
We really have to get it up to speed, back to the selectmen and the planning board by
yeah,
November 15th
Right.
latest.
right.
I don't mind doing it again.
I'm just trying to remember how often we used to meet, because I got asked to go on the master plan committee, and I did, and they're meeting weekly, you know, or every other week or something, and I found as soon as I got on it, I just can't do it. I can't work and do everything else and go to
Discuss
the,
that with you tonight.
yeah. So you know,
Mike, would you be
I said I'll be available.
I could do it. I
What it is mostly changing wording in the zoning, and it's getting the right wording in. You know, we usually are making sure that it's in the right zones. You know, it's not real heavy lifting.
It's actually, and it was good for me because it was the first time, right? And-
you said it's only 5 or 6 meetings all
Yeah.
consecutively? It's not,
Yeah,
No,
it was
right
a
now.
little more than that, but, I mean,
October to December.
probably about 8 meetings altogether.
We had a lot to deal with because we had a lot of amendments that didn't get approved. And we got almost all of them approved this time, so that's behind us. But to John's point, there'll probably be 4 or 5 verbiage issues.
Mhm.
There's some
Yeah,
other-
sure.
It's not gonna be as
When
difficult.
does it meet?
Can he zoom in? Yeah, so you can zoom too.
Okay.
Okay.
And what day of the week would it be?
It's set as it goes.
Yeah, usually they check to see who's available when they're available.
Jessica Call will.
If it aligns with these meetings, it makes it easier for me.
Yeah.
Usually on a Tuesday or a Wednesday,
Yeah.
And again, it's typically in the fall.
Yes, it starts in August, late August or September.
You know, they like to do it on Easter, Christmas, you know, New Year's, Hanukkah.
People that don't have anywhere to be New Year's Eve, it's a great place to be.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah, and then we celebrate right afterwards.
BYOB.
Okay.
All right,
So, it would be Mike and Tom, because how many from each board?
the three, you need three,
Two.
you're gonna
Two.
need two.
Two.
Actually, the selectmen reps, yes, too.
I don't,
Be there anyway, right?
last year, along with two others, ZBA members. I don't mind going.
Okay, great. So we got, so John, we got Mike Hepworth that is volunteered to make sure that that's okay. All right,
Okay. And the other is?
Tom.
Yeah, I'll still be the chairman.
Thank you.
And myself, also.
Right here?
On Paul, too.
Paul, Rochelle, okay? Okay. Anything more on that? All right, okay. Approval of the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I think a lot of us just pick up our packets at the beginning of this meeting. I haven't looked at them.
Okay, so I'm gonna, I think everybody didn't get their packets very quickly. I'm gonna, why don't we go to the next meeting and continue, we'll continue the minutes?
I move that we continue the approval of the minutes of March 4th until the next meeting.
Okay,
I did pick them up last night, and I was able to look at
do we
them.
need a vote on that? Do we need a vote on?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. I'll second it.
Second?
And for discussion, I'll say, I got them, I read them, they're fine. But in any
I
event,
read them too.
There's only one case, but I'll second it. I think everybody should have a chance.
Yeah, I thought it was okay.
Okay, so you seconded that?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye. Sorry. I forgot about the roll call.
I think I should have stayed, well, I can still review them, even though I wasn't here, but,
Staying.
No, you
I, Tom.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye? Okay, great. All right, so we're gonna move that to the May meeting to review. I was on this board, and I just want to mention that when I came onto this board, we were backed up 5 or 6 minutes of meetings, okay? And,
Frank, I'd just like to make a motion that your leadership, forward thinking.
here we go, okay? That's not gonna work. It's not gonna work, okay? All right? Especially when we get down to, election of officers. It's not gonna work, Tom, okay? All right. So, and is there any correspondence, John?
We have HB, what is here is HB
Oh,
111.
Oh, man. Did you guys read this thing? Ooh.
No, have we read the actual proposed statute? I haven't seen the statute anywhere. All I've seen is people's comments about what it's gonna do, and everybody's gonna get sued for just existing. I mean, as a lawyer who sues people, I like that idea. Not really, but what I'll tell you is, there's no such thing in the law. There's no strict liability for government, but I want to see the statute. I think that there was a lot of nonsense, the letters that we got as to what this does. I'm just saying, I've never been anywhere in the United States, I practice all over the country, where anybody can be sued unless they do something wrong. You have to do something wrong. There's no strict liability. So if John goes out and refuses to grant a permit, he's still going to enjoy governmental immunity for that. And he has to be doing something. So I'd like to see the statute that takes away.
I think it states it on here, right? Is that,
Where?
it repeals RSA 31.
No, that's describing what it does, and then it editorializes what it does. But I'd like to see that, in other words, if it's going to substitute for an RSA, I'd like to see what the new RSA is, because I can't believe it'd be anywhere where they would take away immunity.
And this was brought forward by a
they did.
procurement unit out of state. that
Yes.
brought this forward. I just don't know who co-sponsored it. That's what I was interested.
The House Judiciary Committee, the chairman, who was a retired attorney, was one of the co-sponsors.
Okay.
So,
And it went through the hearing with no discussion and no debate, and was almost unanimous when it passed through. This has been submitted by an organization that is out of state, that is funded by a gentleman named David Koch, and it is,
Koch brothers?
it's very, very, very disturbing, because what it does is it does affect what we normally would assume is a municipal immunity, whereas if an individual makes a good faith decision based on their expertise, such as me, I no longer have any immunity. The other half of this, as I view it, is that not only will it, reduces immunity, but it also opens up, personally, we have to defend ourselves. I can't afford to do that, and I'm not going to.
I mean, it seems so appalling that I can't even believe it's real. I would like to see the new statute, because
I will make sure you get it.
Yeah.
That'd be good to see it, yes.
John, could you get,
Don't look good to me.
could you have it emailed to all of us? Okay, so that
Absolutely.
we get to it, because the part that had me very concerned, okay, was exactly what you said, that the immunity the individuals would not even be able to be insured by, the way it read, insured by the municipalities, okay? So that meant that the individual might have to get legal counsel individually, the way I read it. And if that be the case, that puts me into a liability that, why would I want to serve on a volunteer board, okay?
Right.
I just can't see
I'm
that.
worried that this is like a scare tactic, propaganda stuff. It's like that under general agency principle law, if you're doing something in your capacity as a town official, I'm going to be able to sue the town for your conduct. I can't sue the town anyway because of their immunity, and I doubt that immunity is going away in any real fashion, but it would wipe out the whole concept of employer-employee or agency principle. And I mean, the description of this thing is the most radical thing I've ever heard in terms of a change in the law. And we're in New Hampshire, for Pete's sakes, in the state legislature. We're one of the toughest states in the country to get anything through up there in Concord.
So
It
either
seems bizarre.
the municipal association are being alarmists, okay? And because we haven't read the statute.
Yeah, we gotta read it.
Okay, we need to read the statute.
Yes,
Right.
Okay, and see what the statute
What it
says.
really does.
And what it repeals.
Well, that's right, what it repeals, but
We need to know what it's gonna repeal.
Right, I can't
Okay.
imagine a law like that. It'd be like if the firemen get to the fire too late and your house burns down, you're gonna sue them.
Well, that's where some people, this premise is coming from, on the police movements out there, because they are looking towards holding firemen and policemen more liable for their actions and not be covered under any municipalities.
It's the beginning.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's to waive that immunity, whether this is the first step or it's eventually to get there. But
Yeah.
I think it is scary.
What was shocking to me, if
I
it's
don't
true,
believe it exists.
is the Judiciary Council, 21-6, voted in favor of sending it to the House
Right.
with no discussion and no comments from any, I don't get it.
Well, that's like, everybody
Has anyone placed any calls to the representatives?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
To that point, John, Jessica put this out, she's got George Feeney as District 5, he's no longer in that position, it's Paul Terry. But I talked to George Feeney, and personally, I see him most days, and he was very upset over this. He's very upset over the whole matter, and really was befuddled that this even got through the committee. And so he's looking into it, even though he's not in that position anymore, but he's getting a hold of Paul, sorry, but if Jess could just update that he did not go through on the last election.
I did have one conversation. I called the first guy that was on the list, Peter
Peter Bonney.
Peter Viney, who I did not know that lived in town.
He lives right across
He lives right across the
Yes.
street here.
Yep.
Okay. And he's, we had a great conversation. He said, Frank, I just heard about this and I'm looking into it, but if what you're saying is true, I don't know how any of us could support something like that.
No.
Okay?
Anybody
But
would know.
I said, that's why I just don't understand. And then the other part that got me nerved up, John, was how did the municipal association not know that this was coming up, on HB 111 with the Judiciary Council and didn't address it? How is it that it got by them? Are they just having
the
no,
opportunity to.
Well, maybe if they have no
There's-
meeting.
Right. They're doing everything their own way. There's not a professional organization like the assessors, the building officials, the police, the municipal association. There's not one professional organization that supports this in any way, shape, or form. Ray Howard, who's one of our representatives, feels this is a wonderfully crafted piece of legislation because he was the first one that Liz sent a letter to. And his response was, this is perfect. Everybody needs to be held accountable, and which I don't disagree, being accountable. But now, if I'm going to be held personally liable for any perceived mistake, and it's not just a matter of making a mistake. To me, it opens the door that now I can, if 5 of you don't agree with me, I'm going to be sued by 5 different people all at the same time. Even if I'm justified and found to win, I still have to defend myself at my cost. I can't do it.
No, that's why none of that makes any sense, none of it. And there's nobody in their right mind who would ever support any kind of law like that. It's
okay,
an absurdity.
so if that's absurd, okay, how does 21 out of 6 move it to the House?
Well, let me tell you something. I've been in front of the Judicial Committee on a number of occasions to testify. When I was president of the trial lawyers, when I was on Board of Governors, we always had legislation that we proposed. We couldn't get anything through, to go after insurance companies with, bad faith when they deny claims. And we couldn't get anything through the Judicial Committee. It's one of the toughest committees in the state. I've sat there, large crowds gather, they go on for days, and they hear testimony. This thing, which was sweeping, radical change to do away with this law of you can't sue the government comes from the English common law. Okay, it's hundreds and hundreds of years old. It comes over from England, and you can't sue the king. That's what a government immunity is all about. Now, all of a sudden, someone's proposing to just do away with all those hundreds of years that you couldn't even penetrate that. Now, all of a sudden, it's going to be enacted without even the Judicial Committee hearing about it or doing anything about it. It just seems so bizarre to me. It's like a fiction.
It doesn't seem bizarre to me with the current situation we have at hand that's running through the country. There's a lot of bizarre activity going on and laws that are trying to get passed through. So something like this, I can see, it is alarming.
I haven't seen it. I haven't actually see it.
Do you know the group that originated it?
It was a libertarian.
Libertarians? Really?
Yes.
Yes.
Sound libertarian to me.
It doesn't sound libertarian to me either.
It doesn't.
Okay,
Well,
it sounds,
The cover, do you actually know the name of the organization, the actual group?
I don't.
and if the chair of the Judiciary Council is an attorney, okay, and he thinks it's great, and because he's passing it through, we've got some serious issues here.
Well,
In the town I spend part of my time in Lewisboro in New York, there's a group in Brooklyn, a radical Black Lives Matter group that is suing South Salem to attack the police department there for, basically wanting to do the same thing, defund the police. It's coming from a section in Brooklyn where it's communist radicals, And they've gotten one town councilwoman in our town to agree with them, and she keeps bringing up these motions that are going before the police that have zero, there's no evidence of any police brutality or anything. There's no case, there's no lawsuit, and they're dragging the police department in our town through the mud. It's the same idea, an out of jurisdiction group that wants to just, it's like an anarchist movement to try to screw up something in order to get their foot in the door. It sounds like it's got the same origin.
You've got to look at everything.
Yeah, John, let's, please get us that, this,
You gotta look at it.
let's look at the statute so we can read it, okay? And,
And we know what it's really doing.
what's the selectmen doing about this?
Nothing as of yet.
Nothing as of yet.
We'll be discussing
What
it.
is going on
We'll
with
be
the
discussing
selectmen?
it
Okay?
because we didn't meet last week, and some of this is gonna be coming up for discussion.
But just as far as that board is concerned, on our level, never mind the bigger other,
Yeah.
there'd be no.
The organization,
There'd
the
be no
name of the
organization.
organization,
No, of course not.
If I was gonna be held liable.
Nobody would want that liability.
It's
the
implied
name of
that
the
you
organization,
have immunity from liability if you can.
I'm sorry, say what, John? Say what, John?
the name of the organization is Americans for Prosperity. And it is funded by David Koch, K-O-C-H.
Yeah.
He's one
He's
of the-
like an ultra-conservative, staunch Republican.
They're
Okay,
libertarians.
who has,
They are
he and his brother have controlled lobbying. They're unbelievably wealthy. They're in a million different industries, and they run a lot of the Republican conservative politicians in this country. So the idea that they're behind this to do away, first of all, it would go absolutely nowhere to do away immunity. It's not going to happen. I've been involved in this in 40 years of being a lawyer, and I can tell you immunity is here to stay. It's going nowhere. And this is absurd. And particularly, it's going nowhere in New Hampshire. This is one of the toughest places in the world, and Sununu would never sign a piece of legislation like that.
We need information because.
Of course you
Right,
need information,
exactly.
because everybody
Just
gets
you
riled up.
Right, just you mentioning a party name on either side triggers,
Right,
everyone starts going down. a rabbit
Need
hole.
more information on it.
And people can't do it. I mean, as a lawyer, I'm trained to look at the facts of each thing that anybody brings to me. He's talking about New York. I get it, but you have to look at that individually. It has nothing to do with New Hampshire. Every case stands on its own facts. Who's doing what, for what? So you got to be rational and intelligent about all these things instead of knee-jerk reacting to everything, which I think everybody does on social media, but that's a whole other story. So people get riled up easily today. Nobody wants to pay attention to the reliability of, give me the facts. Show me what you're talking about. And in this particular case, looking at that statute that's being proposed, it's to me the starting point.
Right.
So
I think that's what we need to do.
yes.
Okay, instead of being alarmed by it, let's see what the facts are.
Yeah.
Okay, but it did pass the judiciary group, and
Did he?
it's going to the House.
It is.
Okay?
Yep. Won't last long in the House, I don't think.
Yeah. Okay.
Hope not.
I
Yeah,
don't think.
yeah. Well, let's just see. I mean,
And I think immunity is here to stay, and you still would have, and I don't know how anybody would be individually responsible for their own defense when you're working for the town. Insurances cover all the employees. Now the insurance
That it
companies
does.
are
That
gonna
it
get
does.
behind it and
That's
say,
you
we're not
read,
gonna
you
insure you.
read what the municipality
Paul?
said.
Yeah,
Paul,
yes, sir.
I just sent you the bill text.
Okay, good. So it's the actual, it's the,
111.
HB 111.
okay, yeah. Good.
But this should be brought up with the planning board, with the selectmen especially.
Oh, yes.
We all have an open mind and we discuss it.
But it affects every town official, too,
Well, this is 507. This is what exists now. The state of New Hampshire and its political subdivision shall be responsible for the actions of its employees. That's the long-standing law for hundreds of years. So, John, this that you sent me is the current statute, I think, right? 507H? Or is this is this the new proposal?
This is the new
An employee-
proposal.
This is saying that the state shall be responsible for your actions. Number two, an employee is an agent of the state of New Hampshire, a political subdivision that employs the employee, agent, principal. That's what I just said. The state of New Hampshire, a political subdivision shall be legally responsible for any wrongful acts of its agents if such act occurs under the color of law. I mean, this is saying the absolute opposite.
Right. Well, on this sheet of paper, it says it expressly supersedes RSA 507.
Right.
Oh, so that's what I'm saying. This is the original. So, but where is the statute that says 507 will be, that, you're talking about a description of what it's going to do, Tom, right?
It also,
We need,
Paul,
yeah,
Section 4 says it constitutes a waiver of sovereign immunity by the state of New Hampshire and its
Section
political
4.
subdivisions.
of what, the new law?
No, the new law supersedes, 507H1, superseding to the extent of any conflict, this chapter supersedes a defense or immunity in RSA 99D, 507B, 541B, or any or other RSA section enacted prior to the effective date of this chapter. That includes 30, I think it's 31.9 or 39, which is another one. I'm working off of.
Did you send me that, John?
That's what I'm reading it as the link that I just sent you a link.
Right.
And that takes you to the text of the bill.
Okay, bill text. Oh, you have to download New Hampshire 221 HB. All right.
But anyway, I'll let you look at it. I'll get it to the rest of you.
We'll have to take
I am going to definitely talk to.
That's very bizarre. That's all I can say.
It's an anti-conservative, bill. It makes no sense.
I'm going to talk to the town
Yeah.
administrator about it.
Oh, brother,
We don't know what.
one of them's dead now, but,
Yeah,
that sounds completely counter to what.
Well,
to who they are.
if in fact it supersedes everything that's in there for immunity, you're gonna see a mass exodus.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
the way I read it, it's still due process. So as a, for instance, if a police officer goes and arrests somebody, and the person believes that he violated statute, right? The person then takes it to the Supreme Court and says, I was unduly withheld, arrested, treated by this police officer. If the Supreme Court rules in favor that it was unconstitutional act, then the municipality is hands-free of any liability, and now the police officer has to then represent himself.
Well, that's always been the case in the sense of what's called an ultra-virus act. So if the police officer was acting beyond the scope of his employment,
Yeah.
so, I've always hated that guy, I'm gonna get him. That happened in New Hampshire, that kid that shot the cop and everything, they had a feud going on forever. And he's like, there's that punk, I hate that kid, and he's a cop, he's on duty, he goes after that kid and beats the hell out of him or whatever. If it's determined that that cop did that as a personal act, his own grudge, committing a crime himself or whatever, then the town isn't gonna put up the dough when that cop gets sued by the kid for getting his head beat in. The town's gonna say, you weren't within the scope of your employment. But if you're acting within the course and scope of your employment, you're covered by you're an employee of the town, and the town's responsible for what you're doing. And I can't imagine that law going away, but I'd love to see this. And I don't think anybody in their right mind is going to vote in favor of that. That bird is in here and he hasn't paid his dues.
That was bad.
That was a bat.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we've had a
nice
bat.
brown bat.
Yeah, he comes out every now and then.
Yeah, that's good.
That bat has paid its dues. Bird didn't, but
He's
the
scared.
bat did.
Laura was sitting over there the other night, and she was panicking because it was flying in and out of here.
Oh, really?
It's in the belfry.
Yes.
Anyway, well, that was a good discussion, I think.
Yeah, yes.
And I hope
When is the
that,
vote for that?
I hope that none of what is being talked about is ever going to come into existence, because the whole country goes down the drain and stuff like that happens.
It just doesn't surprise me
Yeah.
that this is,
Well,
coming
No,
through.
I can tell you right now from personal experience, nothing like that ever gets any traction. It doesn't get any traction.
Good.
Never has.
I don't know, no, but I
No,
do
not
not
usually.
understand how it even got through the
Well,
judicial.
I wonder.
They have some
I
answer
know.
to do for that.
Well,
How could 21
it's
people?
Republican
It
dominated.
doesn't, what I should say, it doesn't surprise me that they're trying, that this is being tried. That's what doesn't surprise me.
Something's not right.
No.
Okay, anyways, let's look into, can we move to the election of officers? This was what I was waiting for, okay? Election of officers.
I'd like to make a motion to have Frank continue as chair.
Yeah, well, I would like to make a motion that I believe that Tim should be the chairman, since he was the vice chair.
I was gonna say that.
I'd like to make that motion. Would you like to second
Tom
that
or Tim?
motion?
I will second that motion.
I think he means Tom, right?
Tom, you're
He's
Tim.
been
I'm
calling
sorry,
Tim all
Tom. I'm gonna get it right sometime today. I want to recommend Tom as the chair of the new year for, the variance board.
And,
Since he did such a fine job as vice chair.
and
He
Paul
did.
seconded it.
I did second it, yes.
We gonna take a roll call vote?
Yes.
Tom, what say you?
Nay.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
It's a 4-1,
Yes.
Tom, you know?
I'm gonna oppose the HB 111.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman, okay?
Vice Chair?
Vice Chair.
I'd like to nominate Tim Morgan.
I'd prefer not to take a position. I'm concerned about my attendance next year. My wife is going to a third neurologist now. All three of them have their office visits on Thursday.
Oh,
Okay.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Totally understandable.
Well, the good news is, we have Mike here too, so anytime you can't be here, at least
Yep.
we didn't have an alternate, right?
Yep, exactly.
Then I would withdraw that nomination and propose, Paul Manzioni. as
I'll second that.
vice.
Is that like the joke that says you have two choices? One is you could, no.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
It carries because I'm voted.
You want to say,
I'll say aye.
thank you,
I'll do it.
thank you.
Because I
Okay.
won't have to do it.
All right, do we need anybody else?
Yeah, we need a clerk.
We need a clerk.
Yeah.
Tim can't do it. I'll take it. I'll do it.
Okay.
I was clerk and I just assumed.
I'll second that. Paul Manzioni, aye.
Paul LaRochelle, aye.
Who are we voting for?
Me,
Frank.
Frank
Frank
Rich,
should be clerk.
aye.
Frank the clerk.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Tom Lee, aye.
All right, cool.
So-
Got that done.
Why does it say appointment of alternate?
There's a form on the back of
Yeah.
our.
Yes, I saw
Yeah,
that.
it's on there.
Sign or something.
Oh, we do, all of us?
Yeah, we just got, we all,
Do you understand what, it's to appoint you?
John,
I thought we already did that.
I don't think we all signed. John, do we have to sign this thing for Mike?
Yes,
the
has
alternate-
he been sworn in?
yeah,
Yeah,
was sworn in already.
Yes,
a couple months ago.
But do we?
I did it.
All right,
Yeah.
then,
I
wait.
swore him in about 2 months ago.
That's right. Let me then just hold off on that and we'll take care of it.
You know, this board may have to sue you for that, okay? You know, you have no immunity out.
Once we get 111 passed, the first thing we do is sue
The
John.
first thing we're doing is
So
we're
you're
going
gonna
after you.
go right for the jugular.
We're going
Hey,
after you.
Frank? Hey, Frank?
Yes,
Frank?
yes.
My wife would be more than happy to give you all my stuff.
Okay, my friend, all right.
She'd be waiting for that.
Don, for all the applications tonight, we had just one large plat. Where would you like us to leave that for you?
Just leave it with the rest of the paperwork there on the table and I'll get someone to pick it up tomorrow.
And I'm the one who grabbed that, because we didn't have any, and when I was here last night for a meeting, I saw it and took the liberty of taking one of those in case we didn't have one here this evening. So I'll just put it back with the other one.
All right.
I'd love to, okay, so,
I make a motion to adjourn.
you do.
Can I just, say one thing, and an update on the master plan?
Oh, sure.
Did you get, any information on email, from last night's meeting?
Not from last night's meeting.
The master plan committee met last night, and, actually, I was the only one here with Josh. The rest were all remote.
Yeah.
There was a few members that weren't, but we made a quorum. As you know, for the RFP consultant, Jessica had sent everything out. There were about 8 different people, that it went out to. 4 got back with proposals. And last night, we narrowed it down to 2 people, 2 companies that we'd like to interview. So at this point, it's moving forward and with questions, and we'll be getting together on the 15th. I was going to talk to you about whether you wanted to be on the panel or not to interview.
I say.
How we left it was Rob Reagan was on it,
Yeah,
Russ Wilder, and myself.
okay.
It'd be a requirement of 3 people. I said if someone else wanted to also do it, if Mr. Manzioni wanted to do it, I'd step aside.
Oh. Do you know when we're doing it?
I'd be the 15th.
Okay.
It's going to be from 9:30 a.m. to like 12
Okay.
on the 15th on a Friday, right? It's a Friday. 15th of April, I believe it was.
That calendar from here, you're really remarkable.
Say, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
The 15th of April is a Friday.
Okay.
So, no, it's the 16th.
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, the 15th is a Thursday.
No, take that back, the 9th.
It's the 9th of April?
Yeah, on a Friday.
So I'll.
Want to get back to me, it's either I do it or you do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Russ has had experience
Yeah.
with the interviews and doing master plans, so hasn't Rob. I'm a representative of the selectmen.
Right.
But I said, and I thought it would be important to have you as an attorney and to do the interview with them. Doesn't matter if I'm there. So it's up to
the
you.
9th, you said, yeah. Let
So
me check.
if you'd like to do it, I would be more than happy to
Good.
have you take my place if you'd like.
No, I'll check on the 9th.
One other just tidbit information before we close. The Fiore property is up for sale. 10 acres, and it's my understanding, just from the appropriate people to let me know that, on any kind of land mass, but especially that particular one, because it's so close to the town hall and whatnot. And if you recall, he ended up not going through his application with the variance board.
That's correct.
So, it's up for sale, 1.2 million, for 10 acres. I thought that was interesting, just for tidbit information on what's going on. I mean, that's 120 grand an acre. No access to 28.
Right.
Yeah, so I thought it was interesting.
That's it. That is interesting, yes.
Okay. I sent it off to a couple of people that might be interested in it, that are in town, and they were astonished at the pricing, But anyways, to make a long story short. So I just thought I'd mention it because it might be important for the selectmen to know what's going on.
Yes, that is important. Thank you. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And like I said, the master plan committee has been meeting, but we didn't meet for the last couple of weeks.
Right.
So it's narrowing down to 2 people for the interview, and then make a choice from there, and then start working with the consultant.
Yeah, good.
Okay?
No.
So we talked about the questions. There's some questions that were on there, but we're all going to give input on what questions are. And I felt as though it would be good if you were there.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's why I mentioned you, and I said I'd talk to you, and I would step aside. And then we're gonna be present, by, Zoom anyway, but
I see.
3 people are gonna ask a question,
Okay, good.
okay?
Yeah, good. I'll get
I'll,
back to you on
I'll
that.
entertain an adjournment.
I'll move to adjourn.
Manzioni, do I have a second? Thank you, Mr. Morgan.
Aye, Tom Lane.
Tim Morgan, aye.
Frank Rich, aye.
Paul Rochelle, aye.
Paul Manzioni, aye.
Thank you. God,
Thank
thank
you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Thank you,
Take care,
John.
John.
Good night, John.
Feel
Have a good night.